All right, so now we're going to go ahead and start drawing a third icon here. We're going to draw, in this one, we're going to draw like a specific application menu. So we're going to draw what's known as an IDE, a development environment. And so that's going to look more like a terminal. So if we go into Spotlight and open a terminal window, something more like this. So we're going to draw that kind of window in the next portion. So let's go into icon 3. We're going to lock these two because we don't need them for the map. We're going to make a new layer. We're going to turn these guides into a new layer that's able to be hidden with one click. And I'm going to come in here and I'm going to start drawing just like we've done before. I had the L tool, the ellipsis tool selected. I meant to have the rectangle tool selected. My apologies there. So make sure it's 80 pixels. Eyedropper tool to duplicate the style that we've already established. On the inside. One thing I forgot to mention is the color that's selected by Illustrator by default is CMYK of 0 value, so black in the print world. But it actually is not all black. It is hashtag 231F20. And so that's something to keep in mind. I'll turn everything black when we go to export it, but making sure that the styles stay consistent while you're creating icons, whether it's already in color or just in black and white, is very important. So now we're going to set our shape again to be 4 pixels. And then we're going to start drawing inside of here. So the first thing we want to do is draw the taskbar or the status bar of the application itself. Let's go ahead and get the line segment tool. And we're going to set it to 2 pixels when we're drawing this. One thing I want to do before we do this is with the M, with the rectangle tool, is making sure that we're drawing something that's low enough, that has enough space from the top that we can see it when scaling. So let's set our box size here to be, let's do 15 pixels. And we're going to lock that. And we're going to draw this in outline mode. And then I'm going to turn back on preview mode to see, to show what I'm doing here. But all right, so we're drawing our status bar right there. And now we don't need this little helper box. It's great to use shapes to help out determining where things should be located. So now we're going to remove that, and we see that it's at a good place. But I almost wonder, this is the part of icon design that is what makes truly great icons. So now that we see, or now that I see that this has a height of 15 pixels, I'm seeing that there is a great benefit to having that much space because it makes it that much more visible at a small size. So let's go ahead and transform this down now to 40 pixels tall, and we're keeping the transform origin, point of origin in the middle, the reference point, just so that everything is consistent. So that looks much more legible from a small size already. And then we're going to do the same thing with this, 60 pixels wide. And we're going to set height, let's try 30 and see. 30 is a little too small, so we can bump it up a little bit. That's better. So that's more legible. It's all about legibility, scalability, and sensibility. So now that we have this internal line drawn, that's our status bar. What we want to do now is draw the little close icons. And of course, we're going to abstract these out. So these are going to be much smaller. So we're going to do transform, we're going to lock transform, we're going to go up to 8. Make sure that we're setting this. And then we're going to move this over so it's got a bit more space. We're going to do command, we're going to do alt drag and hold shift to make sure that we have it far enough away. And we're going to do it again to duplicate. And I'm setting these 10 pixels apart from each other. They're 8 pixels wide, 10 pixels apart. So it's got a 2 pixel padding, which is good. And then that looks consistent. These are also going to have fill in them. So I'm just going to go ahead and toggle that on right now. we're going to draw in our actual ID now. So with this, we're going to do the line segment tool, and we're going to turn, we're going to get a line going here, and I'm actually going to make sure this lines up. I'm going to select, with this new line segment I just drew, holding shift and selecting the first circle we drew above. I'm going to make sure to line these up to each other. The way to do that is align, and then align to key object. Illustrator is going to select the first object you selected by default. So I want to go ahead and click on this circle. This is what we're going to line it up to. So if I have this circle selected in the heavier shade here, and I do the vertical, the horizontal line, then this is going to set up a nice centering for me. So that's going to be set up. And I'm going to go ahead now and option drag this down, duplicate it, rotate it around, and go back into preview and line these up. I'm going to do shift click on both, and then I'm going to do command J to join them so that we have a joined item here. Now, I'm going to bring this down a little bit, spacing, and I'm going to transform it. This time I'm going to set the reference point to the left center. What this is going to allow me to do is make it larger, but I'm going to only transform it from the left pushing over as opposed to transforming from the center. And watch what that does. So that makes it much larger, but it doesn't move it. So now I can click outside of that and move it over as a good framing there. Turn off guides. Always good to continue to check. And actually from a distance, this needs to be a little bit larger. It is really, as much as you draw in guides, and notice I am keeping things in certain quadrants, it's important to keep checking what you think should be done. And I'm actually going to move this down. And it's really important, I know I keep saying it, but emphasizing how much you should draw at a small size and zoom out here and check things and recheck them. We're actually going to move these down. We're going to see what different sizes look like. So I've got 6, 7, and 8 pixels, and I want to check at what size it really loses meaning. 8 is a little too large from the status bar height we have, but 7 looks good. So let's size this down to 7. And we'll also size this back up to 7. And one thing you can do is, I always check when I'm drawing things to make sure they're aligned to each other in a way that makes sense. And what I mean by that is sometimes you'll have line segments that are in certain places and shapes that are in another, and there's really no point of reference that makes sense just by looking at it. And so it's great to double check with a line tool. And so I'm going to do Command Y to put us back into outline mode, and I'm going to draw a rectangle that would simulate where these are sitting. So this is the bounding box. Hold shift and select all the objects we're working with. Then we're going to do the same trick again, align to key object, that first object we have selected. Then we're going to do a vertical align and just make sure that they're perfectly centered. You can eyeball it at times and certain things will snap to point, but it's great to make sure that that's where it's at. Although in this case, we actually have a thicker line up top, so we need to that's looking good, looking nice and legible from a small size. I'm going to turn off guides here just so we can double check our work so far. All right, great. We can bring this down. A lot of it is about feel. I mean, as much as you want to draw grids and say that you can make things aligned perfectly, a lot of it really is about feel. So now that we've got our caret opening up our development platform, we're going to stick with our practice again of doing multiple weights. So I really like adding weight here because we're going to toss the weight out with this next portion. So I'm going to draw the line from the top of the caret. I go to the edge here, move this, that, and we're going to be cutting out weight on these. So these are only going to be 2. Again, Alt and hold just to make sure we're duplicating things. Here. Now, one thing we could do to make sure these are lined up, first is going to be transforming from the left again. We're going to try to keep proportions off. We're going to just bring in the width a little bit. Then we're going to do reference point on the right. Bring it back in a little bit more. And we're going to make sure that when we bring these down, dragging the whole group, snapping it to this point, and then just deleting one of those out. 3 points. Align selection again, horizontal, and then vertically distribute them. Select these two. And again, we're going to do A, select the endpoints. That's looking good. And the last thing we're going to do is we're just going to draw the box at the bottom of the IDE. So this is where any kind of errors or the console or any kind of messages that a developer would need to see while they're developing a program and testing it is going to be displayed down here in traditional IDEs. So I'm going to make a box section for that just so we have a little bit extra. And that would also be something that would be filled. So what I can do is I can draw a rectangle tool, selecting M. I can draw what we need here. I can delete out this line, we don't need that. And I can use the shape tool, making sure we're lined up to just have the bottom corners get rounded. I'm going to bring this inside. I'm going to turn on the fill. So we have a nice full bottom section of that. The more I look at it, the more I think that we don't need these two lines down here. So let's just stitch those completely. Let's make this a little bit bigger. And we can do Command G and we can actually group these and center them just to make sure things are working out.